When I was 2 years old, my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. I had an older sister who was 6 and a mom who was 30. People are unsuccessful and unfulfilled. And it saddens me, but it's true. The next bucket is successful and unfulfilled. All right, so branding is what people say about you and think about you when you're not there. Okay, branding. Marketing, you mentioned that. I think marketing, branding, and sales gets really blurred. I call it STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance. But I'm also someone who has later on in life, after 26, done a lot of the inner work.
Welcome to another episode of Business Growth Talks, the podcast where we deep dive into the strategies and stories behind successful business growth. Today we have a truly inspiring guest, Alan Lazaros. Alan is a business coach, consultant, trainer and speaker who has dedicated his life to helping others achieve both success and fulfillment. His story of self-improvement began with a nearly fatal car accident, and he has since become a guiding light for entrepreneurs worldwide. Hello, Alan. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Mark. I'm very honored to be here. You have 500 episodes, hundreds of interviews, and I can tell based on the amount of thoroughness that you've put into this that this is going to be an awesome conversation. And truth be told, I live for great conversations, so I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
It's an absolute pleasure having you on the show. You've got a really interesting backstory, and we touched on that before we hit record, but I do want to talk about your business and how you've been able to grow that really successfully. As always, the first question that I ask is, what does a business mindset mean to you?
Yes. So a business mindset is someone who, I think that I was at an event once, and I went with my business partner, my girlfriend, and her business partner. And the very first slide was business is about making money. And I knew the event was going to suck after that. I do not agree with that. I think that the purpose of a business is to bring something of value into the world and then make money doing that and then reinvest that money back into making that product or service better. Business, to me, the right business mindset is turn your passion into a purpose. So my passion is self-improvement. My purpose is to help self-improvement spread throughout the world. That's one of the reasons I'm here right now. And my profit, so passion into purpose into profit, is I'm a business coach. So I help business owners improve themselves and their businesses to turn their passions into purpose, into profit. And to me, the whole world improves when we all take responsibility for our own life and for our own passions, and we do serve something greater than ourselves. The point of a product or service is not to make money. The point of a product or service is to make the world a better place, and you have to make money in order to do that. Money is like the gas in the tank to get to a destination, and the destination is a mountain that gets higher as you climb it. So there is no end to business. It's not, oh, now we hit our first million, so now we're done now. No, we're going to reinvest a lot of that to get to 2 million. And then we're going to reinvest a lot of that to get to 4 million. And then we're going to reinvest a lot of that to get to 8 million. It's the purpose of the snowball is to impact more and more people to make the world a better and better place. And to me, if everyone had that business mindset, we would live in a world where it's not at the expense of other things. So I always say if it's not a win-win, it's a lose. So it needs to be a win for the business, a win for the business owners, a win for the business team, a win for the customers and clients, a win for the world, a win for the environment, a win for... Some companies make money at the expense of the environment. Some companies make money at the expense of their clients and customers, like cigarette companies, that kind of thing. So the idea here is... My business mindset is it's an altruistic money machine where you turn your passion into purpose for a profit. And the ultimate goal is to make the world a better place in some unique way. And that's really the philosophy, I think, underneath entrepreneurship and business in general.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting. There's this whole idea of passion. And I do agree. So I do this podcast because I'm passionate about storytelling and interacting with other business people. But it's interesting, turning that passion into profit, it can be a challenge. And so you might be really passionate about, I don't know, basketball or something even more niche like squash. Yeah. Not many people like it. It's very niche. But actually being able to monetize that, because profit is part of the story. It's not the only part of the story. And I agree that there can be problems when the profit is the only reason why you're running a business, because you've got to like it or love it, or you won't do it for 500 episodes or 1700 episodes as in your show. So you do have to like it or love it to be able to then have the longevity. And I always think people try and monetize too quickly and they don't realize, and you talk about reinvesting, but people always try, like they start a podcast. And when I was training people, I'm just about to train someone else, training people, almost the first question is, when do I get to monetize it? I'm like, you've got to wait. You've got to build an audience. You've got to build a community. You've got to understand the audience that you're communicating with. That takes 100 episodes to be able to do that. So I do worry when people start businesses, and starting businesses is one of the most difficult things, I think. It's brilliant. It's an amazing experience. It's changed my lifestyle, but you do need to get to that monetization to be able to have the longevity to keep on doing it, to keep on building it. So I totally agree that it shouldn't be the first aim. You've got to love it or like it to actually get there. But someone talked, a previous guest, my last guest, said the money's the rocket fuel to then be able to grow and be able to, and what we talk about on this show is about growing and scaling your business. What's your thoughts?
So the whole monetizing as soon as possible thing is the problem, because if you go into business, and nowadays in the 21st century, right, there's 5.44, last time I looked it up, 5.44 billion people on the internet. And there's, after COVID, there was 5 million podcasts. I think it's lower than that now. Most of them don't make it past, much lower now. So most of them don't make it past 21 episodes.
Yeah.
And so the staying power, I actually think business is a lot of staying power. I often joke and I say business is about certainty. There's a reason why building a brand matters. And there's a reason why every company has a specific brand. What is a brand? A brand is what people say about you and think about you when you're not there. A brand is real estate in your consciousness. So Next Level University is my brand. This show is your brand. There's a reason I always say this to my clients, my business coaching clients. I say, why, when you find an animal and you don't want to keep it, why don't you name it?
Yeah.
The reason
you
you
make
don't
an
name
emotional
it,
attachment.
Yeah, you make an emotional attachment. And once you name it, you're in trouble, because now you're going to love it, and now you're going to keep it, and now you're going to end up, we found one of our cats, her name's Tiger Lily, and I named her, and we literally found her on the side of the road, and we love her. She's so sweet. We have 2 cats and 1 dog, and I had to talk to my girlfriend, and I had to say, sweetheart, I need to know this isn't going to happen again, because we've got 3 businesses between the 2 of us, and we're young entrepreneurs. I'm 35, she's 29, and we're really trying to build right now to make sure when we do have children, we're not in a position where we have to work all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
And so, listen, no more pets for the next several years. I don't care how many cats are on the side of the road. So we had to have that conversation. But the point is, once we named Tiger Lily, it was a thing, and it became a thing, and we fell in love and all that stuff. So I always say, human beings are certainty driven. They always have been, and they always will be. When you're going to get a soft drink, you're going to buy Coca-Cola, not Sam's Cola, because no one knows who Sam is. Sam is Sam Walton, who started Walmart, and he started Sam's Club, and Sam's Cola. Everyone's going to choose, 99% of the time, they're going to choose Coca-Cola, because they have certainty that it's going to be good, and they have certainty of what it is. So, to answer your original question, if you want to monetize too quickly, you're screwed, because no one has any certainty of what you do, why you do it, how you don't have it yet. So I started coaching for free. Kevin and I, my business partner, we started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast 7 years ago. And we needed to monetize, and we decided to start coaching for free. Then we got a couple clients for free, trial, hey, let's help you with mindset. It was fitness coaching, it was mindset coaching, it was peak performance coaching, a little bit of life coaching, got off that, and then eventually he became a podcast coach. I'm a business coach. But that's been 7 years and thousands of coaching sessions later. First it was $50 a session, then eventually 75, then eventually. So it grows. If you want success out of the gate, do not start a business. Because what I'm telling you right now, unless you get ridiculously lucky, you are so in for massive pain and suffering and failure. But if you go into it saying, hey, I'm going to start this podcast because I adore self-improvement, or I adore talking to business owners, or I adore movies and films, or I adore squash. Because 5.44 billion people online, there's a market, there's a community of people who love squash.
Yeah.
And if you start a podcast about squash, or a business about a new way to play squash, I don't know anything about squash, so I can't really reference it. But the one thing that I think people don't understand, I'll be brief about this, but a relationship is built on a common core value. I think businesses are too. So I have these Nike shoes. I needed new shoes, and I'm a bodybuilder. I also run 5Ks. I'm an athlete, and I consider myself an athlete. I identify as an athlete. Nike honors athletics and athletes. I'm going to be drawn to Nike unconsciously because I identify as an athlete. I don't identify as a squash player, so I'm not going to listen to a squash podcast.
Yeah.
And so brand and business and marketing and sales and community is built on a common core value that's under the surface. Apple should not sell energy drinks, and Tesla should not sell computers, and Red Bull should not sell iPhones. You need to stand for something, and you need to embody it in every sense of your being, and then from that place, you'll build a brand and a business and a team and all that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what's interesting about the growth of businesses are most businesses start very narrow. Amazon just did books. Nike just did running shoes. And as your business grows, there's more scope for you to be able to branch into other avenues. But that's because you have established a niche that you're servicing and you're providing value for, which means that you can expand to other things. It's very much on podcast advertising. I've listened to podcasts that have about athletic greens, AG1. Have you heard of AG1? It's a green juice that has everything you would need with all the nutrients, and it has all this. And I've listened to AG1. It was called Athletic Greens initially. It's called AG1 now. And I listened to podcasts, quite niche podcasts that they were advertising on. And then they got on to Tim Ferriss, and they got into the really big podcast shows. They now have got into radio, national radio in the UK, and national television advertising in the UK. And it's a very interesting, but at the start, they were servicing people that wanted to get that nutritional hit to be able to make them feel brilliant at the start of the day and get them ready for their day. Some were athletes, some were just regular people that just needed a nutrition boost. We all need to start somewhere. We all need to start somewhere relatively niche and then be able to grow from there. And it's exactly the same story as you made about your coaching. You started doing coaching for free. You did your 10,000 hours, and then now you're being able to charge for people with a global team, and we'll come on to all those things. So I think it's absolutely important that people realize there is a lot of work before the money is coming in, that you can use rocket fuel to be able to immensely grow your business. Thank you for sharing that, Alan. Now, I want to move on because this is something that's been part of my life, and I wanted to touch base about this. How did your father's death shape you and your perspective on life and personal development?
So it really changed my life a ton, obviously in the moment, but it also changed my life later, and I'll explain. So when I was 2 years old, my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. I had an older sister who was 6 and a mom who was 31. She was a stay-at-home mother. And then I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. So my real last name is actually McCorkle. Lazaros is a Greek last name. So my whole life, there have been Greek people who come up to me and go, Lazaros? And I'm the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed. I don't have a hair on me. Greek people,
Yes.
Lazarus, what are we doing? I said, so my real last name is McCorkle. My father was John McCorkle, big Irish Catholic family. So I'm Irish, Polish, and German and Scottish. And he was part of a big family of Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette.
Oh, amazing.
So 6 kids. My mom, my stepdad's last name around age 6, I think, or 7. Fast forward. So we don't really associate with the McCorkles during that time. At 14, hardest year of my life, did not understand this at the time. In my 30s, I often joke, I say I'm hoping to hit puberty at 36. I still look very young. Not helpful in my business coaching career, by the way. It's who's this 12-year-old telling me how to grow and scale my business. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be 36 this year in November, and I'm 35, and so I'm still young, but I'm more experienced than I was. But at 14, in my 30s, I started doing therapy, and at 14, I've understood now in hindsight how bad this year was. Stepfather leaves. Haven't spoken to him or anyone from his side of the family. So Grandma Joan, Grandpa George, extended family, aunts, uncles, all that, none of them. Haven't spoken to a single one of them since. I did talk to my stepdad a little bit on Facebook Messenger, but I've never seen him since. That same year, my sister moves out with her older boyfriend, so it's just me and my mom. So my stepdad got the apartment building and the yacht. We got the house and the dog. And he took 90% of the income with him too, so that was a whole nother thing. On top of that, my mom gets in a fight with her sister, my Aunt Sandy, and my Aunt Sandy ostracizes us from that side of the family. So at 14 years old, I lost 3 families by the time I'm 14.
Right.
Because I don't associate with the McCorkles anymore, my birth father's side. Stepfather leaves, takes his entire extended family, and then, so 14, hardest year of my life, hands down. Did not understand this, and my trauma response to that, I now realize, was work harder, aim higher, get smarter. I got straight A's through high school. I got all the scholarships and financial aid I could. I went and got my computer engineering degree at one of the top technical schools in the world for $50,000 a year. It's like a mini MIT. It's called Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I'm actually doing some work with them now. And I got my MBA, and then I went into corporate, and 21st century computer engineer with an MBA, I just did really well. I worked for iRobots and SATA Technologies, which used to be Texas Instruments, all these different tech companies, and I rose the corporate ranks, for lack of better phrasing, and I ended up as a global 1% earner in my early 20s. I was making almost $200,000 a year, and my bills were super low. $500, I split rent, lived on a lake with my girlfriend. I didn't have a family or a mortgage, and I was broke through all of high school and college, so I didn't need much. I bought a 2004 Volkswagen Passat, and I'm answering your original question here. At 26, I paid off $84,000 worth of debt in a single year back in 2014. I had $150,000 in an investment account for Vanguard with stocks and tech companies. To me, after my stepdad left, I thought wealth was going to solve everything, so I just wanted to get as wealthy as possible. So I'm 26 years old. I'm working for a company called Cognex. I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. We weren't partying or drinking or anything. Playing Call of Duty. We go to TGI Fridays. It's a dark winter night back in 2015. And I'm driving the 2004 Volkswagen Passat. That car saved my life. So thank you, Volkswagen. I used to call this car the Tank. German-engineered steel trap of a car. I literally called it the Tank. So thank you, Volkswagen, because whoa. So I end up on the wrong side of the road. The snowbanks were covering the yield sign. I look up from the GPS, and there's a Mack truck in front of me, what I thought was a Mack truck. 2 things saved my life. 1, thank you, Volkswagen. Number 2, it wasn't a Mack truck. It was a big lift-kitted pickup truck. There's a lot of those up in New Hampshire. Head-on collision. When I saw the lights, I thought for sure that was it. The frame stayed. Airbags deployed, but the whole front is completely smashed in. I've actually just talked on a podcast yesterday with someone who said that the Volkswagens back then, he talked to one of the engineers on the team, they were one of the safest vehicles on the road. And I know intuitively this vehicle saved my life. I mean, if I was in my mom's little Honda Civic, I would not be here. Thank you, Volkswagen. But anyways, so I end up okay. I hurt my face in the airbag. He hurt his knee on the airbag, my little cousin. And that little cousin, it's a second cousin, is from the one person, his name's Jeff, my first cousin. He has a kid named Dan. That's the only person to this day that I've seen from my mother's side. Talk about the abandonment issues that I didn't realize until my 30s. Whoa, losing 3 families by the time you're 14, losing your father when you're 2. Whoa, I'm okay physically. But my dad died in a car accident when he was 28. This is the second chance my dad never got. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I'm not even remotely okay. My little cousin Dan, second cousin, is tweeting about it the same night. Totally fine. Still invincible high school mindset. I'm 26 going, what if that was it? And so after that, everything shifted for me. That's when I started my own company. I had a company back in 2012 in college that was like a little one. So it wasn't my first company, but it was mine as well have been, right? I started a little company called Alan Lazaros LLC, what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know. I fell in love with personal growth, personal development, and self-improvement. I started a podcast called Conversations Change Lives. And one of my friends started a podcast called the Hyper Conscious Podcast at the same time. Change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. And then we teamed up and we had the worst podcast title of all time, which was the Conversations Change Lives meets Hyper Conscious Podcast. And then we eventually, 20 episodes in, we decided to go all in on the Hyper Conscious Podcast. That's still to this day the name of my business legally. And then we rebranded to Next Level University. Level up your health, wealth, life, and love. And now we're heard in 170 countries. We've got 1,750 episodes as of recently. We do an episode a day, average of 30 minutes a day. And it's all about holistic self-improvement. And now he's a podcast coach. We produce a bunch of podcasts and several of my own and his. And then I'm a business coach. And so my roster is now, you mentioned my 10,000 hours. I don't have 10,000 hours yet because I have it tracked. I have a 10,000 hour tracker literally in Google Sheets.
Nice.
And I'm at like 8,000 for podcasting, coaching, speaking, and training. And so I'm at like 8,000. And I've got 24 people on my roster as of yesterday. I lost one yesterday. And the youngest is 16. The oldest is 63. Everywhere from, hey, I want to start a YouTube channel. I'm 16 years old. His name's Micaiah. All the way to, I've been in business for decades. I'm already a multimillionaire, but I don't want to work 12-hour days anymore. And everything in between. And so that's really my story. And I forgot your original question, though.
Doesn't matter, but let's just move on. Something you did mention, which I found on my research. You say life, love, health, and wealth. That's an almost impossible task to attack all of them at once.
Yeah.
How do you approach when you're working with clients? Which one? Are you directed by the client or are you directed by a sort of feeling on what they need to target first up?
The first thing to understand, and I really appreciate this interview already, when someone comes to you, they come to you because they want something. Obviously, they want to grow their business. But what they need is always different than what they want. Because if what you wanted was what you needed, you'd already have it. And so that's one of the weird things about branding, marketing, and sales is people come to you for what they think they want, but that's never what they actually need. And so the answer to that is I have to give them what they want so they stick around so that I can also pepper in what they need. And so for example, let's just say someone comes to me and they want to grow their business. That's usually the goal. But I find out when we dig deeper, their business is not at all aligned with who they really are anymore. And it's not fulfilling whatsoever. And they're neglecting their health. I was a fitness coach, fitness model, fitness competitor. And I used to do fitness coaching all the time. So I can tell. And by the way, you got to figure out what someone ties their self-esteem to because it's always unconscious. And if you have low self-esteem and low self-worth, you're in trouble, particularly in business because business is brutal. It's like awful. I don't think most people should be entrepreneurs. I think it's really terrible for people who are certainty driven.
I actually think I don't think it fits everyone. I think there's a huge amount of population in every country that people should just and I've done both. I've done the corporate career and now running my own businesses. And I have people in the corporate career. They love the security. They love having the company around you. There is a misnomer that actually there is security because in my 14 years, I went through 3 redundancy packages and people were let off. So that security that people think there isn't always there, but let's just put that to the side. But I totally
It's
agree.
more than starting your own business, though.
No, exactly. That's the big leap. And I think
Yeah.
some people, it's now cool to start your own business. And I think that's
the
quite
dangerous thing.
interesting. That's because people are being drawn into it, and their personality type, their characteristics are not suited to a marathon, not a sprint, and they think that they need to get to the sprint first of all. When you're talking to your clients, how do you tap into that and get them to understand whether they are entrepreneurial or not?
Well, there's 4 buckets I use as a general framework, and a lot of it's intuitive. A lot of it is, I've met so many people from so many countries in so many industries, and I think I'm a coach at heart too, whether it was because my mom and stepdad didn't get along and I always had to understand their emotional state and what their real motives were. I mean, and not get along is a very kind way to put it. I mean, it was not good.
Okay.
But anyways, so I a lot of it's very intuitive, and I just happen to love, I call it STEM, of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, and finance. But I'm also someone who has later on in life, after 26, done a lot of the inner work too. So I have that professional development plus the personal development side. So a lot of it's intuitive. But I do have a framework that I think will land for everybody, which is whenever you watch a film or a great book in literature, it's basically 4 main stages that a character goes through. The hero's journey is what Joseph Campbell called this. And you've studied storytelling, a lot of this stuff. But to me, I have my own sort of flavor of it. And I went through all 4 of these buckets myself, and now my job is to help everyone get to the 4th bucket. So the first bucket is being unsuccessful and unfulfilled. So when I was in my teens, I was deeply unfulfilled and unhappy, understandable given the story I told you. And I was unsuccessful. I worked as a car kid and a busboy. I didn't make a lot of money. I was treated like crap, quite frankly. I remember one time I got burnt the biscuits, and I had them literally thrown at me in the kitchen, like that kind of thing, just bullied. So unsuccessful and unfulfilled. I think that's where most of us start. We're unsuccessful and unfulfilled, and we have no idea why. We don't know ourselves. We don't know the world. We're just stuck in our own ignorance. We don't understand anything. And this was before Google, so I didn't know what the hell to do. I guess it was when Google was in its infancy, because Google's 25 years old. But so when I was 10, Google was founded. So I remember the days when there was no personal development books. There was no Audible. There was no, you have encyclopedias and you look stuff up for answers. You go to the library with the Dewey Decimal System to get answers. It's a very different world now. But anyway, so how old am I, huh? So you're sitting there going,
I'm older than you, so don't worry about it. You're fine.
Don't worry about it. It's funny. So the first bucket is unsuccessful and unfulfilled. And I think most people are there. If I'm scared to say it, but I'm going to say it because I'm trying not to be such a social coward anymore. Most people are unsuccessful and unfulfilled. And it saddens me, but it's true. And I was there too. The next bucket is successful and unfulfilled. So in corporate, I was super successful, but I was not fulfilled. No way. Definitely not. Not in comparison to now. After my car accident, I flipped the script hard, and I went all the way past broke. I liquidated all my stocks. I got every book I could get my hands on. I bought courses, and I thought I had the answers, right? And I went past broke. I started my own business, and I went into debt. And I was super fulfilled. Fitness coach, fitness competitor, fitness model, achieving my dreams, happy, health, fit, and productive, loving my life genuinely, but unsuccessful. I was not successful. So I went from fulfilled and unsuccessful to successful as hell and unfulfilled to now I'm super fulfilled and I love who I am, but I'm not successful. How do I sustain this? And then the 4th bucket is the one that we all want to get to, which is I want my future to be an amplified version of what it already is. And that's the bucket I've finally gotten to 9 years after my car accident. And I think I got there last year, so I'd say 7 or 8 years after my car accident. But that's where I help people get to. And the only way I can help my clients, to answer your original question, is I need to figure out what bucket they're in and what bucket they think they're in.
Yeah.
And then help them get to that 4th bucket. And so that hopefully is a good framework for everyone to understand, like, which bucket are you in? Are you successful and fulfilled and you want your future to be an amplified version of what it already is? If that's the case, you just got to focus on scale. Mm-hmm. But maybe you're in a position where you are super successful in business, you've grinded for decades, but the business is no longer aligned with what you really want to do with your life because you've evolved. Or maybe it never was, but you just needed profit and certainty from money. And so a lot of people go into business thinking they're going to make a lot of money. They realize that's not true, at least for the first 5 years. And then eventually, 10 years, 20 years in, you're super wealthy. I have a lot of mentors and coaches that are multimillionaires. And they realize later on, I don't really like this at all. I don't even want to do this anymore. Right? So then they retire, but now they're bored. And so we're all in one of those 4 buckets. And it ebbs and flows in terms of the syntax of the buckets.
But it's interesting you say that. The interesting thing you said was what buckets they're actually in and what buckets they might think they're in. And there could be a misjudgment on that. When you feel that, when you say it's a little bit intuitive that you do that sort of assessment, how do you manage their expectations and manage them that to actually give them the realization that they're not where they think they are?
Yeah, ask the right questions and try to sit in the discomfort of them actually answering. So I do this all the time. When were you the most fulfilled? So if 10 is the most fulfilled you've ever been and 0 is the least fulfilled you've ever been, what are you right now? And we can do this live if you're open to it. So
when was I most fulfilled?
So 10 would be the most fulfilled you've ever been.
Yeah.
0 is the least fulfilled you've ever been. Where are you now?
Probably about 7 or 8.
Okay, cool. Now, to me, as let's say I was your coach, hypothetically, it's my job to figure out what was different when you were a 10. So now we have to identify when it was a 10. So now let's go into your
but
past.
The problem with that is I have a slight cynicism about me. I'm never sure whether you can actually reach a 10. Because I feel gratitude. I feel very lucky that I had now, with the change in focus from a corporate career to an entrepreneur, I now have the lifestyle that I want. I now see my kids every day, lots of times, in like touch points in the day. When I was in the corporate career, I would leave before they got up and I'd be home after they were asleep. And so from a fulfillment point of view, and this is like you'll experience this when you do have kids, something flicks in your brain when it's like, actually having no relationship. And they were very young, so we've been able to build a very strong, good relationship with both my children. But I just think from a point of view of getting to a 10, I almost don't want to get to a 10 because then it's like, where do I go from here? Right? It's always the next step. One of my biggest, right, we were having a little bit of a therapy sessions. One of my biggest problems is when I achieve something, I don't spend a lot of time on smelling the roses, as we say over here, like stopping, appreciating. And I would just go on to the next thing. Right. That's done. I enjoyed it. It was great or whatever. It was very fulfilling. Now on to the next thing. And one of the things my wife has encouraged me, and a therapist that I spent some time with has encouraged me, is to actually stop at those occasions and just have a look around and see how lucky you are for what you've achieved, whether it's a personal goal, whether it's a professional goal, whether it's financially or spiritually or whatever it is. I do think that I don't think we ever get to a 10. It's like someone said to me about work-life balance. You never get it right. It's not a balance at all, because you're either prioritizing your family and your business, or your corporate career is not doing as well, or you prioritize the other one and then the other one suffers. So I never think that there is that optimal 10. I don't know. I don't think I've ever reached it, but I'm cynical whether there is a 10 out there.
I think it's an infinite game. So you just described in game theory. So forgive me for I'm a computer engineer, constraint theory, game theory, all this different stuff. Yeah. In game theory, there's finite games and there's infinite games. And you realize, I actually think that your modalities of thinking are actually more sophisticated in some ways than what your therapist was suggesting there. Okay. So chess is a finite game. I played chess with my girlfriend last night. Becoming the best chess player I can be is an infinite game. And so there's no end. It's a mountain that gets higher as you climb it. And I think
Yeah.
that you are someone who's an achiever, obviously, who
Thank you.
enjoys the climb, which is exactly what fulfills you. And so people always say it's about the journey. Listen, it is about the journey, but the destination you choose in advance dictates the journey.
Yes.
If I'm going to drive 30 minutes south, that's very different than in my 20s when I drove from Boston to LA. The adventure that you embark on that is fulfilling of growth and meaning and purpose and calling is a byproduct of the destinations you choose, aka the goals. Because people say, if you're not going to be fulfilled when you get the goal, why set the goal? The point of the goal isn't to get the goal. That's okay. We spent 7 years trying to get to our first million. Now what? We're not done. If you're
It's interesting. One of my guests I had on, he's an accountant by trade, but he's so much more. He's a coach. He's a phenomenal guy, Mark Willis. And he said to me, when it comes to business, it's a stepping stone. So you're aiming for your first profit or revenue of 500,000, and then you go to 1 million, and then you go to 2 million. And he said it's all a new experience, because if you haven't ever made 1 million before, you don't know what it's like to make 1 million. So the challenge is to get to the stage where you can have 1 million. And then your challenge is to get to 2 million, and you've never been to 2 million before. So it's always the challenge of getting to 2 million. And he actually said, don't go to 3, go to 5. So you go to 5 million.
Nice.
It's the challenge. You've never experienced it before. Everything changes. You move from generalists, where everyone sort of pitches in at the startup level, and then you move to where you need specific people for specific tasks, a finance guy, a marketing guy, whatever. So every step of the stage is always a new experience that you're developing. And he said, like, there is a very cliche thing now to say it's the journey, not the destination. And I do agree with you. The aim is important, because the aim is actually when you check out. Because if the aim of your business is to get to a certain level and you reach that level, then you've got to think. And if you don't have aspirations to be an empire builder like Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg, who started from a startup and now run a corporate, if your expectation is not that, then actually that might be the point to check out and sell the business.
Yeah, it's possible.
And actually start again. If you love starting businesses, then you start again. But you've now got the experience of being able to get your business to 10 million, 100 million, whatever it is that you've achieved. So I always think that these stepping stones, you are absolutely right. The destination is very important. But it's all, every step, there's different things that you need to know, develop, build, team and everything like that before you get to that next stage. I think it's a fascinating and really insightful way of viewing the progress of business growth.
If your progress in business is not fulfilling, then it's time to check in on that. And even when I set the stage, I set the frame, I said 10 out of 10 represents the most fulfilled you've ever been. So let me ask you a question without the 10 or 0. Are you the most fulfilled you've ever been?
Oh, yeah, probably personally as well as professionally. Yes, 100%.
Then you're in bucket 4. You
Okay.
are successful and fulfilled, unless you're unsuccessful. Are you unsuccessful?
No, we're doing all right. We're doing fine.
Okay, you're doing well. Okay, great. Awesome. So you just want your future to be an amplified version of what it already is,
Yes.
but you don't want to work 12-hour days, 6 days a week.
Yes.
You want to spend time with your family. Now,
Yes.
fulfillment is a byproduct of something, a formula that's deeper. I always try to use this metaphor. One of my team members, his name is Brandon. Awesome dude. He's 5'4", and his dream was to play in the NFL, and he knew, statistically speaking, that was not going to happen. But he did make it to college ball. And when I asked him, 0 to 10, how fulfilled are you? He said 6. And I said, when were you the most fulfilled? He said, back when I was playing. And I said, let's break this down. I'm a computer engineer, so everything's formulas for me. There's 4 modalities of thinking. Mine is math. It's the rarest, but that's also why most people don't like me. Okay, I broke it down in a formula. Okay, you had a head coach. You had a defensive coach and an offensive coach. You had peers that were working toward common goals. Everyone had goals and milestones along the way. There was practice throughout the week and games on Sunday, and your parents got to enjoy in the experience. There's a reason why we're fit on sports teams. Everyone who's on sports teams is super fit. It's not because you decided to be fit. Look at Michael Jordan now. Michael Jordan's completely out of shape now. Cigars, he's not in shape. He wasn't in shape to get in shape. Being in shape was a byproduct of wanting to win championships. He didn't decide to be in shape. He had to be in shape to win championships. And so that's the same way life works, and same way business works too. Fulfillment is a byproduct. You don't just wake up in the morning going, "Oh, I'm fulfilled today." No, it's a byproduct of meaningful progress toward meaningful goals for a meaningful purpose in alignment with your core values. But no one figures this out. I've been trying to figure this out my whole life because when I was a kid, I looked around and I playfully referred to where I grew up as the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. And where I looked around, I'm not kidding, it was so scary to see how unhappy everyone was. I looked around and I saw deeply unfulfilled people. Marriage looked awful to me.
Right.
Everyone hated their jobs, couldn't wait for the weekends, partied up a storm to escape their life. And these marriages, they don't even like each other, never mind love each other. What are we doing here? And as a kid, I'm a computer engineer, so I was like, this sounds awful. All of this looks awful to me. I have to find a formula to not end up old and miserable like everybody else. And that was my goal. That was my dream, is let me figure out the formula. And so 26, my car accident really woke me up, and then I amplified trying to find that formula. But I've been trying to find that formula my entire life. The thing I was missing from the formula was self-improvement. I was achievement-oriented and I was improvement-oriented, and I could improve processes and get results and achieve, but I wasn't self-improvement-oriented. I wasn't working on me as much as I am now. And then I flipped the script, worked on me a ton, and went broke. So
you need to get a balance between the two.
You need to do both. Yeah, you need to do both.
So you've managed to get to 21 people, 21, you don't say employees, people that you work with. How have you set up that team, and how do you nurture the relationships within your team?
So it's 22 now. We just got our latest and greatest, Stephanie. Shout out to Stephanie. So what was the question? I'm sorry.
So how do you manage a global team? Because we now live in, a lot of people work remotely and things like that, different locations. How do you manage those teams?
So we don't have a headquarters. There are team members I've been working with for Laura. I think I've been working with for 4 or 5 years. I've never even met her in person. She's from Spain. We have a bunch in the Philippines, Spain, a bunch in Canada, several in the US, one from Pakistan. Some are freelancers, and there's the whole mercenary patriot thing. So the way that I break it down is patriots fight for the mission, mercenaries fight for the money, and you can't win the war with mercenaries is essentially the idea. So I have the NLU core team, which is people who are 10 out of 10 in our 3 core values, which is growth, impact, and humility. And the third one, humility, is the most important. I mean, working with people without humility might be the worst thing on planet Earth. So those 3, and inward humility too, by the way, not just the like modest outward appearance, pretend to be humble when in reality you're arrogant inside. People who really actually have core humility. But anyways, so the NLU core team is 12 people, I think, as of now, including Stephanie, and then the rest are freelancers, contract work. But at the end of the day, how do we manage the team? We have a dashboard in Google Sheets that everyone's connected to, and we track metrics. And we have 21 departments, and we have metrics for each department, and we have directors of each department. And it's like 21 trains all aligned in the same mission, like a book club. We have monthly meetups. We do a group coaching program. I'm doing business coaching. Kevin's doing podcast coaching. We also have a podcast production company. We produce 40 other shows. It's gotten really big and complex, but ultimately we run the whole business from one main dashboard, and then everyone has their own individual dashboard, all run in Google Sheets. And we use tools to stay connected, like Zoom. So every director runs their own business unit. Each department rolls up to the ultimate business. And so every other week I have a department meeting with each director. They have their own team that works and then we use WhatsApp. This has been awesome. We use WhatsApp groups for each department.
Yeah.
And so globally we can all connect intimately in these WhatsApp groups. So each department has its own WhatsApp group. So I'll just use book club as an example. Book club is every week, and we pick a new book, every quarter, and it's got a team of me and 2 or 3 other people. So me, Brandon, Christina, and Jerry Ann, we'll say. We're all in book club WhatsApp chat. And it's our job. It's Brandon's responsibility. He's what we call the DRI. Steve Jobs used to talk about DRI, directly responsible individual. He's the DRI for whether or not book club is winning. And whether or not he's winning is in quotes because it's based on metrics. So we have top 3 metrics. So 1 is attendees. Number 2 is WhatsApp engagement, because we also have a front-facing book club community WhatsApp group that we have 55 book club members or something like that in there. And then there's one other metric. I forget what it is. But we track those every other week, and then we see, are we winning or losing? And then that rolls up to a main score, which I call the growth, impact, profitability score, where every single other week we get the whole team on one Zoom where we rate every department, and that's when the directors can cross-pollinate their awarenesses.
Right.
And so it's really just a runway where each business unit director is responsible for their own top 3 metrics, and then those metrics roll up to one master dash that shows us how well we're doing. And so we go up or down every week or stay the same based on the progress in each department, based on the metrics in each department. It's actually quite exhausting, but it's a cool way to build a ton of momentum. And we have a big community now. And again, big is relative, right? But like private Facebook group, for example, that's one of the departments. And as long as the Facebook group is engaging and valuable, and that feeds the podcast, and the podcast feeds the Facebook group, and the Facebook group feeds book club, and book club feeds my coaching, and coaching feeds the revenue, and the revenue feeds the team, and the team feeds the right. So it's an ecosystem that grows on itself because we don't have outside investors, so we have to reinvest, and that was by choice.
Brilliant.
That was by choice.
And what about marketing? How do you market? You've got multiple different areas, but what's your marketing strategies?
So the marketing, our podcast, we don't do any advertisements. So let me give you the high level. So high level, I don't know. I know you said you had a meeting
That's
at
fine.
the half. But,
That's fine.
Okay. So the high level is Next Level University is the main podcast. 170 countries, crossed 1 million listens. That's self-improvement, success, and fulfillment. 1% improvement in your pocket every day. A mentor in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free. We don't advertise on there, but we do advertise our own products and services.
Right.
So we have a Dreamliner. So I've got this journal that I use, for example. That's one of our products. And products is one department within our company that makes these on Amazon Kindle publishing type of thing. So how do we do marketing? NLU is the main name of the business and the brand and the podcast. Kevin has something called Podcast Growth University. I have something called Business Growth University that I'm starting. So he's a podcast coach. I'm a business coach. And then we produce podcasts and we help business owners grow and scale. And all of that rolls up to the main thing of self-improvement, which is the ultimate passion and the core value. And you mentioned Nike had to start with just shoes. We started with just self-improvement. Then we were self-improvement plus podcasts. Then some podcasters wanted to start a business and we taught them how to do that. And so it becomes this sort of proliferating thing. And so how do we do our marketing? We advertise on our own show, our own products and services. And I have this business star that I do think would be of value for your community, just to give you high level. I think there's 5 things that matter a lot in 21st century business. And I've thought about this upside down and sideways. And I think most business courses and my MBA, and it's very 20th century stuff. It's not... Principles are principles, right? Sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breathwork, and supplementation. If you want to get fit, the principles apply to everyone, but the way you apply them is different. If you want to be a bodybuilder versus a runner versus a dancer, there's nuances. So business principles are the same, but in the 21st century, you have to apply them very differently. And the pre-internet, most of the business literature is not relevant to today's economy. With 5.44 billion people on the internet plus Starlink, so it's going to be way more than that soon. What are the chances I can't find my people to coach, right? It's really cool, but there's way more competition, so it's harder to get noticed, right? So I have this thing called a business star. I also have something called a sales star. And so this business star, each one of these categories, you can zoom into it, speak, and it has its own sort of formula. But the business star, I'll give you quickly. It's branding, marketing, sales, delivery, most important by far. You can't deliver, you're screwed, no matter how good the branding, marketing, and sales are. And then the last one is community. Those are the 5 things that I track with my clients, and I'll go through each quickly. All right, so branding is what people say about you and think about you when you're not there. We already talked about it. Coca-Cola versus Sam's Cola. Nike honoring athletes, right? Okay, branding. Marketing, you mentioned that. I think marketing, branding, and sales gets really blurry. People don't know the difference. Marketing is the message and the target market. So who is it that you're helping, and what is them you're solving, and what is the message that you give them, and what are the channels in which you connect with them? So for us, 80% of our success came from Facebook. That's where we connect with our people. Women who struggle with courage, clarity, and confidence, who want more fulfillment and success, who really feel stuck and low self-worth. We didn't know. We thought we were a couple bodybuilder bros. We thought we were going to be coaching men. But our listeners are 90% women. So who knew? But so branding and marketing and sales. So branding is what people say about you and think about you when you're not there. Marketing is what's your message, who's your target market, and then what are the channels in which you connect with them consistently. So for us, it's Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn a little bit, but not really, to be honest with you. And then sales. Sales is connecting with meaningful conversations with meaningful people that are in your target market and actually having one-on-one conversations via DM, via email, via phone, via Zoom, that kind of thing. And then sales, you have to sell something that you actually can deliver on. In my opinion, in the 21st century, particularly with the whole entrepreneurship becoming cool, people can't deliver because a lot of people are inconsistent. One of the reasons you're so rare in podcasting is because you're consistent. A lot of people can brand, market, and sell and package on social media. I've met these people. They're way better at looking good than they are at being good. We're the opposite. I don't think we look good at all. We're good at what we do, though, and we never for a while. I've started to get better recently, luckily. But delivery was our jam. Like, we will deliver. And other people are selling bags of chips where there's only a third of the bag full, right? And then they just keep hoodwinking people over and over again instead of actually building repeat business with a book of business that compounds on itself. And so they don't get referrals, that kind of thing. All right, so then you've got delivery. So assuming you can brand well, market, sell well, and deliver, you're going to build a community power. We have an awesome community of people. Half my team, honestly, more than half my team, came from listeners.
Right.
You're already aligned with our core values. Otherwise, you would definitely not like my show. So it's just been really cool to just cherry pick the diamonds out of the community. It's been really awesome. And they already are super aligned, super humble, wonderful people. And now they already believe in the mission and they want to be a part of it. So it's fed on itself. But to me, those are the 5 that I think matter most.
I think that's very telling. I think that's very insightful. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. The first question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
What just came up by being playful. Leaving my ex-girlfriend. Leaving my ex-girlfriend. Going to WPI. I will say that. Going to Worcester Polytechnic Institute was the best decision I ever made. Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
One of my mentors said, Alan, in relationships, don't do anything that feels too unnatural. And what he was trying to say is, if you feel like you can't be you,
right,
the real you, it's never going to be able to sustain. And I've made that mistake 1,000 times. It's probably my life's deepest pain, to be completely honest. That
might be why your marketing and things like that weren't so good early doors. You were finding yourself, because branding and sales and marketing is very much embedded in you and what you're trying to achieve, and doing it in your way. See, what way works for me when I'm doing, I don't know, LinkedIn posts. I do a lot of LinkedIn posts, and it took me a long time to get to the point where I could be vulnerable on a post. I can be honest. I can be not brutal in a bad way, but I can tell people like how it is or how my viewpoint on it is. And so I think that idea of authenticity, another buzzword that's been used a lot, but that being able to communicate as yourself, you build a community that way, and it's longer lasting rather than trying to be like someone to sell something, because that's not long lasting. That will fail. So I
It made
think
me
that's...
think of you just made me think of something that I found really powerful is I've always been very externally confident toward goals and dreams and achievement. But my therapist, Carol, she said to me recently, she said, "You're becoming so much more confident." And I remember thinking to myself, no one's ever questioned my confidence. Most people think I'm arrogant. She said, "No, you're confident in yourself." It's like, because I always identified as confident, but I didn't identify as confident in me. I always felt like I was unlikable and unrelatable. And honestly, statistically speaking, I am, right? No one wants to work 12-hour days, 6 days a week, forever for the rest of their life. I didn't have the confidence to be me because I grew up in an environment where being me was not celebrated, I would say.
Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
5 years ago, I would say from the moment I met her to now, it's so funny. A lot of guys will say their wives are always right. And she's not my wife yet, but we're intending. I'm not kidding. From a statistical, analytical, computer engineering mind, like she's always right. And I do not say that lightly. I'm talking like always. So she's helped me lean into who I am. I wouldn't even have a therapist if it wasn't for her. She's the one who helped me understand the value because she had been doing therapy since she was 12. And for anyone who does, I said, guys can't even ask for directions, never mind get a therapist. Statistically speaking, most men don't have therapists, and pretty much all of them need one, myself included, right? But you only know that after the fact, and now it's obvious when men don't. It's very clear that you have done some. When I meet men who hasn't done any therapy, it's so obvious. Right. It's so clear. Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about a regret that you have.
Drinking too much. I poisoned my brain. There's a lot of really good TED Talks about Daniel Amen has a lot of brain scans of alcoholics and Alzheimer's and all kinds of different stuff. And I used to drink. I used to drink so much and too often. And I grew up in an environment where alcohol was very pervasive. It was just everyone drinks. And then
do you drink now at all?
Right?
You drink now at all? You've given up completely?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I haven't drank in at least 5 years. I used to count the days. I stopped counting a couple years ago, but I would say at least 5 years, yeah. The last time I drank was, I think it was June 29th, 2019. So is that 5? Yeah. So yeah, 5 years. Yeah, 5 years.
Coming up to 5 years. Amazing. What are you most proud of?
Probably that. I would say for a podcast, we're really successful. For a business, we're not that successful. And my business partner doesn't understand because he didn't have a big business background. He was like gas station attendant, didn't think he'd go anywhere, blue collar, and he's just awesome. So I'm not saying anything against any of that. But he thinks we're so successful, you know? And it's like, dude, between you and me, as a business owner, we're coming up on $500,000. It's like whoop-de-doo, man. Now, for a podcast, that's 1% of 1% of podcasts just do not make any money.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple that make a lot of money, like Joe Rogan. So for a podcast, we're really successful. For a business, we're still a little toddler, 7 years old, just running around trying to figure it out. I'm really proud of not the money we make. I'm proud of the way we make the money.
Right.
I'm really proud that we really do help so many people all throughout the world. And we really are spreading self-improvement, holistic self-improvement, health, wealth, life, and love through so many human beings. I mean, we touch the lives of a lot of people. And so, yeah, we don't make as much as Nike, not even close. They make more in a minute than we do all year probably. But we're having a big impact in a really positive way, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. And what does legacy mean to you?
So legacy is my number one core value. I actually have it written on my desktop background, so I can actually read to you what it is. Legacy, I have it written, a deep belief in creating a long-term positive impact far beyond one's own life. So my dad passed away, and I've heard stories about John my whole life, and no one talks about how he died except for me, the car accident. Everyone talks about how he lived. And so I feel like I had a very deep connection with legacy from a very young age because of that.
Amazing. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
We have a website called nextleveluniverse.com, spelt just like it sounds. The URL for Next Level University, the guy is charging way too much. So we were like, you know what? nextleveluniverse.com. nextleveluniverse.com, all things next level. And then we have Next Level University podcast, spelled just like it sounds. You'll find us. You can Google us, whatever. And then my email, if you want to email me, alan@nextleveluniverse.com. Just please provide context, because all of us, I get a bunch of spam, which I don't like.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure. You're an amazing guy with an amazing aura about you. You want to help, you want to give back. And I find that incredibly so interesting to hear. And your story is so compelling. It's just been an absolute pleasure listening to you and having this conversation with you. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for those kind words. I'm really grateful that shines through. And I'm really grateful to have been here. And this has been awesome. And thank you for your humility and for creating a safe space for me to be me. Mark, you got it going on, man. Keep it up. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I really hope you've enjoyed that content. It's a really fascinating interview that I've done there. So please do, if you are enjoying this content, please do give it a like. Please do give a subscribe. It'd be really good to boost the subscriptions. It really makes a difference to the algorithm in YouTube. So thank you for that. If you do hit subscribe, hit the bell icon and you'll get all of the content. You'll get notified when all the content is available. Thank you so much for your time. It's really appreciated. Thanks a lot.